So some say that we live in a Bonobo Ape society. So what that means is, so let's look, the Bonobo Apes, what they do is they are a species of apes, obviously, who have an abundance of food, little to no predators, and they don't have to fight for the food. So what's interesting about this is the structure of their society and the way that they live their life, particularly sexually. The Bonobo apes have a matriarchy, and what happens is typically the males, if they get out of hand, women will band together and will squash any kind of resistance or outlawish behavior from the males. Typically, the female, the mothers will come to the aid of another vulnerable ape even after they're adults. Similar to like a mother nowadays. She's always gonna care for her children. And it's really interesting because of all the things we said: an abundance of food, little to no predators, resources are just plentiful as hell. So, the society is run as a matriarchy. And what happens is what they do sexually. They use sex as a tool to build trust and companionship among each other. So they have orgies. And there's a lot of homosexuality that goes on in the Bonobo Ape Society, right? So it's typically the females that have orgies together. Men will join occasionally, but it's mostly a female type of thing, right? Now we look at the chimps, because this is what I got from Elliot Hulse. Actually, he talked about this. But the Chimp Society, but the Bonobo apes are vegetarians, by the way. The chimps, carnivores. They eat meat. So it's run by a patriarchal society. Food isn't as plentiful and is not as abundant. They have to work for it. So the ones that are physically apt to go get it, obviously the males. More testosterone, more physical capabilities to go out and go get these things. Now we look at the comparison between these two societies and we look at a human society. Now, point blank period, I think that as humans, we've had the agriculture state, we have the industrial state, which also brought women into the workforce. Because at first with agriculture, it was typically men that toiled outside. And the industrialization came, and women joined the workforce. And now we're in the fourth industrialization. I skipped the third one. I can't remember what it is, but we're in the fourth, which is technology. And now everything's just gone to shit. This is the hierarchy of humans now. Trans, homosexuals, women, men, right? It's you guys can debate it or not, but these are the facts, right? So what the issue is that this is not how it should be, right? So women, they're living their life for them. And what I mean by that is that women are looking for stability. They're looking for relationships. They're looking for things that's going to help them help provide for their life, because this is this is the nature of it. I don't know about you guys, but seeing single mothers work two jobs is not sustainable. They lose their luster. Women lose that femininity when they have to just be so structural and work all the time. It's not sustainable. Whereas men, we're built for this shit. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying that we need to work two jobs all our life, but we're built for this life. And I did mention something about the Bible, and I think that is something really interesting. For men, God said you will toil for the rest of your life. It's very interesting. Now, for me, I'm not trying to do that. I want to live a life of travel, of luxuries, of abundance as well. So I don't want to tie myself down. I don't want to put myself in a relationship that sometimes will just that for the most part really dedicates most of my resources. It's not sustainable because it's really going against the things that I want. You know what I'm saying? We're conforming into the ways of women and what they want because we're just taught in society to do that. When our fathers aren't in the picture, and not to like that, check this out. Look, once you can understand, and once you, I'm gonna put a link to this guy, right? This guy, he's the epitome of what it means to stand for yourself and not be disrespectful. When you're out here hitting your women to make them submit because they're not respecting you, you're a bitch. It's weak. It's really weak. You're not being what it means to be a man. And if there's arguments or if things that's going on, you need to walk away. Walk away. There's really no talking about it. People love to see, you don't need to explain yourself. If you don't want something, I don't want it. That's it. Right? So also, why one of the reasons why we're the prize is because check it out. There's this homosexual agenda, transphobic agenda. Most of it is a lot of men transferring over to women, right? And not to mention the homosexuality thing. It's a lot of men going back and forth. And I also want to go back to the Bonobo Society thing. It's mostly females buying sex toys. Mostly females. It's a $1 billion industry when it comes to these things. That's why I really, people don't want to say that, but I really think we are in a bonobo society, close to that. Honestly, human nature, sexuality evolves, but as per now, it's kind of becoming that. For men, a straight man, you are already standing out. So what happens when you have the law of supply and demand? Something that's high in supply loses its value. Something that's very high in demand and there's a low supply, that thing becomes very valuable. For women, they look at men as dicks. They look at men as just weak. A lot of them. So they just run the gamut, running game, always talking to several men, always dating and stuff like that. That's why you make yourself that 5% man, that 2, whatever the hell they call it. When most of these men out here, if you focus on your goals, you stay on your purpose and your confidence to approach things and stand up for yourself, you're already standing out from 90% of the men out there. Because a lot of them are homosexuals, a lot of them are transphobic, or this is pushing the agenda nowadays, or a lot of them are just they're not strong. They're hitting. They're bitches. They argue back. You know what I'm saying? Not on their purpose. I'm not saying just avoid relationships altogether, but know your worth, right? Just want to say that.